Welcome to the presentation of the Italgas Strategic Plan 2017-2023. So myself and Antonio Pacioretti will talk about the strategic plan that yesterday has been approved by the Board of Directors, and it lasts from 17 to 23 is the period. I will go through a quick market overview that most of you know very well. Then we will talk about and we'll get in more detail about our strategy. Antonio will explain to you the financial strategy and will give you a brief guidelines about 2017 result, and then I will get the floor back talking about shareholder remuneration and some closing remarks. If you remember last October in London, when we presented the Capital Market Day, at the Capital Market Day we showed that chart in order to underline what was important for Italgas. And I wanted to bring this chart back to show you that the objectives that we set at the Capital Market Day are still there, probably a little bit closer than last October. And I wanted just to do a very quick recap of those highlights. Italgas is a leader in the natural gas distribution in Italy, and it's a unique position to increase the market share. We are living in a regulatory environment that has been in Italy since 20 years nearly, and we have a clear and visible regulation. So we can predict with a high probability the level of revenues and return. We can leverage our operational excellence, and through leveraging our operational excellence in our capability and in our capability to manage the gas network, we can bring additional value. And I think we have already demonstrated that with the results that we show on the first quarter. Our strategy about creating value for all our shareholders is based on three elements. We will continue to invest on the current perimeter. We will push hard in order to get further efficiency. And finally, we will capture all the market opportunities that are in Italy based on the fact that we are a leader in the natural gas distribution. And that it is also thanks to our solid balance sheet and the financial flexibility. Let's move on. Let's give a brief overview of the market. Most of you know the market very well, but I would like just to give you some brief elements. Starting from the gas market, the Italian gas market in comparison to the other European gas market. The Italian gas market is the third market in Europe. It has probably the most developed European infrastructure. And we see that in the years to come, there will be investment either in the transmission and distribution. And such investment, especially in the transmission, will make Italy as a hub for the gas that will connect the Mediterranean, Euro-Asian to the mainland European Union. Why I'm saying that? Because that will further increase the use of the natural gas in Italy at a lower cost. The position of Italgas in Europe and Italy is very well known. We are the third operator in Europe. We are by far the first operator in Italy. We doubled the second operator. We are 5 times larger than the third operator, and that is very well known. And we want to continue to be like that, and that is part of our strategy. Being the leading operator means for us to be able to achieve significantly economy of scale, significantly operational efficiency, and of course coupled with our expertise in managing the gas network. This chart, you know very well this chart. The gas distribution market has been started back in year 2000. Since then, there has been a significant reduction in number of operators. We feel that is not enough, that thanks to the tender and other consolidation activity that we will talk later on, the numbers of operators will significantly be reduced and will probably go to a maximum of double-digit numbers. And in fact, if you think that 30 players, 30 players, controls 82% of the gas volume distributed, you can really understand why, once the tender process will be completed, there will be no more than those numbers as the operator in the gas distribution. A brief concept about the regulatory environment. You know very well that at the end of 2018 there will be a revision of the WACC. You know that at the end of 2018 that will start a new regulatory period. What I wanted just to tell you that in our plan, we expect that the WACC will remain at the same level as it is now, both for metering and network. Now let's go to the important part of the presentation, that is our strategy for the next 7 years. Our strategy of the next 7 years is based on 6 pillars. I'm going to talk about what we are going to do on the organic growth, operational efficiency, and market opportunity. Antonio Pacciaretti will talk to you about financial efficiency, and then finally we will close about the shareholder return. Let me start from the organic growth. You probably remember that at the Capital Market Day, we presented to you a total investment on the current perimeter, so without considering the tenders of an amount around 2 billion euro. Now you see 3 billion euro. I mean, the explanation is very clear. We have extended the period from 2020 to 2023. So that's the reason why you find out that there is a 1 billion investment more. And again, a significant part of this investment is on the smart metering. That is going to be concentrated between now and 2020. The remaining part is network, and then there is a small investment on other elements like ICT and other stuff like that. But to get into more detail about what is 3 billion, what does it mean 3 billion? First of all, I said smart metering. Our plan is to fully comply with the authority requirement by 2018, to outperform, let me say, the regulatory requirement, and to finish and complete the installation of all our meters by 2020. So by 2020, we will have 100% of the active meters to be smart. In parallel, we want to completely digitalize our network, and that's the reason why we have allocated part of the other investment just for digitalization of the grid. I will explain you later what does it mean for our grid. And then we have the network development represent an important part, 600 million. We are going to complete the network in south of Italy. We are still extend the existing network. 1.3 billion is devoted to the network maintenance. We are going to finally replace the old cast iron pipelines. And then we will move to replace other pipes. And starting from 2021, we will start replacing the part of the network that at the time will have finished their life. So it's quite a large area of investment that covers the current perimeter, and the total investment, again, I wanted to underline, is 3 billion euro. Let me get into more details about each of the items that we have mentioned regarding the extension and the completion of our network. Those are not big investments, but I wanted to show these two elements because I wanted to tell you that Italgas has an objective to complete the methanization or the transformation into the use of natural gas of our grid all over Italy. So by mid of next year, we will have completed the new area in south of Italy that are mainly in Calabria and Sicilia with a small part in Campania. And by that time, nearly 100,000 redelivery points will join our network. And maybe you don't know, but we have some part of the grid that are currently managed with the LPG, and they are not connected to the main network. Also, in that case, because those grids are in the area where the natural gas network is existing, we wanted to connect those grids to our full network. So our goal is that we want to complete, and in that case, the conversion from LPG to natural gas, it will take a little bit longer. We will probably complete it by 2019. By that time, we want to complete our national distribution network, also bringing into the network also the small part of them. The result of such investment is a RAB that will grow at a rate of 1.4% per year until 2023. And the mix of the RAB between network and metering will vary depending on the years. You can see that in 2020, the weight of the meters is probably the highest number because as I said before, by 2020, we will have completely replaced the meters, the today's meters, and then from that on, the investment on the network will play the majority of the part. The second pillar of our strategy are the efficiency. I know that you are very curious to have some more detail about the efficiency. At the Capital Market Day, we discuss it, and we discuss it also later on in some face-to-face meeting. And I think we have worked very hard since the end of 2016 and the early period of 2017 to identify the area where we can bring value to our shareholders. Here there is a list of the area. Some of them on most of them we have already started working, from workforce management, operation process, asset management, ICT, and facility. And then we will discuss about corporate reorganization. But for each of them, we have a specific example to show you that the target that we have set for our efficiency is absolutely reasonable, and we can reach that target in a very short period of time. Let's move on. Let's start with the organization. We have collapsed two levels of organization. Before we had 7 districts and 44 operating centers, And now we have decided to collapse these two levels into one level, that is the territorial units. Why we are doing that? Because we want to have a better control from a headquarter point of view of certain processes. We have created a matrix organization where certain activity such as health and quality, security, project control, and engineering activity are fully centralized. In the meantime, we want to give to the territorial units more power locally. So they have to manage the day-by-day operation, the small investment. They have to be closer to the territory. And in fact, we have created, and for us it's very important, a new unit that will control the, let me say, medium-large investment. These new units is responsible from permitting until the construction. So they have to get the permitting, they have to do the engineering, and they have to follow the construction until the investment is completed. So the idea is that this unit should be focused to reduce the lead time between the decision to make an investment until the investment is completed, and of course, to reduce the cost of the investment itself. The new organization is in process to be in place. The new organization at the headquarter level is being completed. By between July and September, in October, we will complete the reorganization of the territorial units. And I think it's important to say that when we made such a decision was end of 2016, and be able to completely reorganize the operation in less than 9 months, it's an incredible target that has been achieved. But more important, one other element that I wanted to underline is that the territorial units contains one or multiple items. So we designed the territorial units in order to match with the atom. What does it mean? That when we are going to win, or eventually to lose in some case, but there will be very limited probability, when we are going to win new atom, our organization is already ready to accept the new concession because those territorial units match the different item. Still on the personnel, I think we have a lot of work to do about our personnel. As you probably know, the average age of our personnel is quite high. And that is maybe true for many of the utilities. But from the other end, is also an opportunity for us to change the culture of the company. So the plan that we have put in place foresee, based on the average age of the personnel, that around 600 people will retire, and we will introduce around 300 people in the period between 17 and 23. The new people will be fresh talent, will be digital people with high technological expertise. And that's a way for us to increase productivity, efficiency, but more than that, it's a way to change the culture of our company. And from a cost point of view, 17, 18 will be the 2 years in which our cost of personnel will increase due to the fact that we have made the demerging from SNAM and because some of the activity have been insourced in respect to the previous situation. But from 2018 on, the cost of the personnel will remain significantly stable. In other terms, the normal dynamic of the cost of the personnel will be completely offset by our efficiency and by the fact that there will be some retirement, so new person will enter the company. I'm still on the point of the operational efficiency, and I'm moving to the innovation. Some example that we want to introduce in our company. Some example of energy efficiency, of innovation. The first one. As of today, normally when you have to reduce the pressure of the gas from medium to low, you normally waste the energy that the reduction of the pressure normally release. The idea is to implement and to implement some small turbine. They will take advantage of the fact that moving from higher to lower pressure, you have some release of energy, and with the release of energy, you don't waste of the energy as of today. Second example, in the next 3 years, we are going to fully replace our vehicle fleet. Today, we have a component, a small component of the vehicle fleet that runs on natural gas. Tomorrow, in 3 years' time, all our fleet, 100% of our fleet, will run on natural gas as a fuel. To do that, we are going to install more than 120 refuel pumps. So we are going to create our private CNG network in order to be able to refuel our vehicles. That means less emission, less cost, and be more efficient in managing our fleet. Third example, today we need, in some cases, to reheat the gas, and we do it using gas. We are going to evaluate all these examples, all this situation, and it may be the case that is economic, convenient to install a small cogen or trigen plant that using the steam will reheat the gas. In the same time, will use electricity, will produce electricity. All these initiatives that are, it's not just a word, those initiatives are real, will improve our overall energy efficiency, will reduce our carbon footprint, and generally speaking, will encourage ongoing cost reduction. I mentioned before the digitalization on the network. What does it mean? What does it mean for us? With the installation of the smart meters, our idea is to install more sensors along our grid. Today, we already collect many data about our network, but still some data are missing. If the grid is fully digitalized, in other terms, there are sensors in the strategic points, and we have the smart meters working, then we can have a clear picture of our network in live. So we can react immediately to any problem our network can have. But let me give you some example. We will be able probably to detect the leaks earlier and be able to react in a shorter period of time if we have a clear picture of our network. We can move from the traditional maintenance of our network, where we are going to replace some of the pipes because we had a problem, or maybe simple because they have arrived at the end of their life. We can move to a predictive maintenance. We can collect other data from our network, and through the evaluation, through the analysis of those data, we can react on our network in a much faster way. To do that, we need to have a strong computing system. That's the reason why we say we couple this digitalization of the network with our cloud strategy. As you know, we are building our ICT infrastructure, and therefore we have an incredible opportunity to use all the digital innovation that are available today on the market to move toward a modern grid. And that is going to be done in the next couple of years. So by the time that the smart meters will be in place, all our grid will be digitalized. I wanted to talk to you about the energy efficiency again from a different perspective. Oh, sorry. As you probably know, the gas distributor as the electricity distributors have an obligation to buy a certain amount of white certificate every year. 2016 has been probably the peak. Our obligation was about 1 million white certificate, that if you translate in terms of value, is about 200, 250 million euro. Of course, after we buy them, we are we are reimbursed by the GSC with a mechanism in which we can lose something for each of the white certificate. In fact, in our plan, we have put some euro per white certificate as a margin lost. We want to, and we had several thought about, we want to capture some of the value that is linked to the energy efficiency. Why? First of all, we have the competence to do that. We have a captive area. I mean, we buy 1 million or a little bit less than 1 million white certificate. So we have, let me say, a captive activity. So we can hedge our white certificate short position. We can be more effective in structuring bilateral agreement in order to get white certificate. And finally, we can gain a competitive position in the tenders because, as you know, part of the economic evaluation of the tender is based on your ability to generate white certificate locally. Each of the tender has a certain requirement about generating white certificate locally, but it's not just a matter to buy white certificate, it's a matter to manage those white certificates in order to provide the local generation. So our idea is that we can enter with a small investment into the energy efficiency sector with a limited capital allocation. Numbers will not change significantly. I mean, there is a small amount, but still, I think we have an opportunity to leverage and to gain some advantage, some competitive advantage in doing that. And finally, corporate restructuring. If you remember, already in London, we say we will go through some simplification of our corporate organization. And we are, let me say, we are at a good step. As you see, Napoletana Gas, now we own 100%. Before it was 99.69. So we made a company reorganization in a way that today Italgas owns 100% of Napoletana Gas. By October, Napoletana Gas will be merged into Italgas Reti, and early 2018, Acam Gas will be merged into Italgas Reti. So at the end of the day, all the gas distribution activity will be merged into Italgas Reti. I mean, it's easy to say all the advantage of this corporate restructuring. There will be less administrative cost, less corporate cost, so more economy of scale. So all the advantage will start running also from a corporate point of view. We will, as you probably know, in Napoletana Gas there are some small water distribution concession. We will take out from Napoletana Gas and we will create a small company in the water sector in order to manage, to have a better management of the water distribution. As you know, water distribution is still under the regulatory framework of the authority, but has a different rule than the gas distribution. Therefore, we want to optimize also the management of this very small business. And last, we will move the participation from of Toscana Energia and the others non-consolidated affiliates from Italgas Reti directly into Italgas. That's a way to optimize the infragroup dividend policy. Mainly, we just cut one step of the dividend flow from, for example, Toscana Energia up to Italgas. So, having said that, so we have made several examples about efficiency. So we move from innovation, we talk about personnel, we talk about corporate restructuring. We do all that to arrive to which target? Our target is to reach at least the 50%, 1.5 reduction of the 2016 baseline. And 2017, it's already on the track. In 2018, we will reach that goal fully. And from that on, in our plan, we will outperform the authority, the regulatory efficiency that the authority will set year by year. And as you can see, the main saving is coming from the external cost. So from all the costs that I showed you before, the initiative that I showed you before are the initiative that will be able, will make able to reach such goal. Now let's talk about the tenders. I would say this wonderful world of the tenders that is moving. Unfortunately, is not moving at the speed that we would like to see. So again, we show you our timeline, our view of the tenders, that of course is very different from the Mille Proroghe decree. So our expectation is that by 2021, all the tenders process will be completed. As you know, today only one tender has been completed, that is Milano. We expect that Milano will be awarded probably between September and October. Torino 2, we know that it will be June 28, so we will submit our offer. As you probably know, Belluno, that was set for June 30, has been postponed. We don't know yet until which is the date. We expect another 2 or 3 tenders to happen in 2017. I will talk to you about what we can do in order to close the gap between this delay of the tender and our ambition to increase our market share. But I will talk later about that. Let me stay on the tender situation, just to remind you some of the elements. 75% of our redelivery points are in items where our market share is more than 50%. And so we clustered the items, and we have around 40 items where our market share is more than 50%, another 30 items where market share is between 25 and 50. So our strategy and the way that we selected the items is based on mainly on 4 elements. So our market share in one item, but in the same item we are looking, and we look at the other operator position. So market share, how many operators there are present in that item, which kind of operator is, and finally we look at the geographical contiguity of the items, because for us it's an important element for our economy of scale. And based on that, we have clustered the items into three. You have already seen this chart, but the difference in respect to what we show you in London and then in the other meeting is that we have clearly identified the number of the redelivery points for each of the cluster and the value of the RAB. In the first 40 items, our winning rate is very high, close to 100. In the second cluster, in the other 50 items, our winning rate that we set is around 40%. If you make the sum of the two, you arrive to the 8 million redelivery point that is our target. Out of the 40, we expect that 30 items will be awarded within 2020. That means that we will move from 6.5 million redelivery points, so we don't count in this number, we don't count the non-consolidated companies. We will move to 8 million. To do that, we need to deploy 1.9 billion euro. That is what you read, 1.4. 1.4 is the net of 1.9 minus 500 million. That is the amount that we expect to receive from let me say, the third cluster and the other items that we are going to lose, so the concession that we are going to lose. The acquisition of the items will generate an additional 600 million of investment. You probably remember that in the past we mentioned 900 million. The difference is that 900 million was for the life, for the 12 years life. 600 million is just for the period 2020-2023. Just to help you to reconcile the numbers between what we presented in the past and what we are presenting now. If we sum up the organic investment with the investment in a new tender, we arrive to the famous 5 billion euro, that is the overall investment. 3.5 is Capex, 1.4 are tenders. And our RAB will grow at a rate of 4.5% every year as an average. So we'll move from 5.7 million to nearly 8 billion, not million, billion. 5.7 million to nearly a little bit less than 8 billion euro by 2023. So it is a significant investment plan that we do at the RAB and that supports the growth of our RAB that is very significant, 4.5%. Let me just close the tenders opportunity. I don't want to go through again what is Italgas today because it is very well known. I wanted just to focus which are the opportunities coming from the tender. We can grow our RAB. We can grow our profitability because economy of scale is a crucial point in our sector. And moving from 6.5 to 8 million, the redelivery point, it's a way to enhance our economy of scale. We have the financial flexibility to do that, thanks to the work that this guy has done before the merging, to create that financial flexibility that will let us capture all these opportunities. And once that the tender process has been closed, then we will enter into a 12-year period where the regulation is very clear, and even more important than that, the exit rules are very clear. But we may experience, like we have experienced, some delay in the tender. So, as I said before, we want to, and we have put in action some, let me use this word, some reaction in order to close the gap between now and the moment in which we will see most of the tenders be online. So we have identified all around Italy a certain number of targets in terms of distributors that are private distributors, small distributors, that can help us to close that gap. So in our plan, we have put 200,000, around 200,000 redelivery points to be acquired between 2017 and 2018 that will have a full effect on the profit and loss account in 2018, 2019. That's the way for us to anticipate the tender. So the final goal of 8 million redelivery points will not change. In other terms, if we acquire 200,000 delivery points earlier, of course, we will reduce the number of redelivery points that will be acquired later during the tender. So at the end of the day, by 2023, we will arrive at the same number. The second point, I mean, we could have written gas natural, but we didn't want to make advertisement to a competitor. So, but in fact, that is the case. Gas Natural has issued last Friday an information memorandum, and of course we have that information memorandum. We will participate to the tender, and hopefully we are going to win. And finally, you have seen in the corporate reorganization that there are companies in which we have the industrial role, but we don't have, we have less than 50%, so we don't consolidate them. We are discussing with the other partners the possibility to increase our share, of course to maintain the role of the industrial partner, but also to become the majority shareholder in a way that we are going to consolidate them in our balance sheet. I will pass the floor to Antonio. So he will talk to you about the financial strategy and some guidelines about 2017. Antonio?
Balance sheet solidity and the financial efficiency. Our strategy is devoted.
Non si sente, non si sente. Ma magari per quelli che sono in web che non sentono.
Pronto?
Ecco.
A bit better at least. No, I was saying that the strategy of the company, the financial strategy of the company is based on two main pillars. The first one is the solidity of our balance sheet, so the risk profile. And the second one is the efficiency of our balance sheet. First of all, we want to support the wide range of opportunities of growth that Paolo was describing before, maximizing the value creation opportunities we have. On the other side, it is clear that we want to maintain the current solidity of the balance sheet, not jeopardizing the risk profile of the entire equity story of Italgas. First of all, let me say the risk profile, the profile and the nature of our business provides us let us expect a very strong, resilient cash flow generation. Cash generation which we expect to cover both organic capex and dividend. we believe that the cash flow will permit us to maintain all the conditions for preserving our investment grade rating, and also thanks to the investment we have done and we will continue to do in relation in liquidity profile, in the safe liquidity profile. In terms of efficiency, today we have a significant advantage towards the allowed return in terms of cost of debt. We want to invest for having a significant fixed rate portion in order to protect this overperformance in the planned period. We will maintain a reasonable consistent maturity of our liabilities consistent with the regulatory review frequency. And again, at the end, we want to maintain, we want to buy a flexibility of our debt structure in order to manage the financial needs, but also to be ready to support the growing business when the opportunities will arise. This is a slide which is quite close to the one we present in the Capital Market Day on November, but I would say it is something of, there is an important piece of news. It is a confirmation that our operating cash flow will be capable to entirely cover Capex, organic Capex and dividend. It is a confirmation that the financial flexibility we have, assuming that we want to preserve our current credit rating, will give us a lot of bullets for supporting the market opportunities and to support the shareholder remuneration. The piece of news is that we are starting our plan at 61% of leverage. This is lower than the one we expected in the middle of last year, which was in the range of 63%. So it is clear that also in the current plan, we do have the metrics, the rating metrics, which are benefiting from this lower starting point. Together with the higher cash flow we expect, we believe that the two major ratios, I mean, the leverage, debt to RAB, in the RAB, I remember we also include the equity value of the affiliates, and the funds from operation to net debt, we will maintain the condition for the current rating level. We expect to have an increase of the leverage following the tenders and following the growth of the market share. We expect a peak not exceeding lower than 65%. And then after the tenders we expect to terminate in 2001, we expect a deleveraging of our balance sheet by around 1% per year. This is the debt structure. You know that in the first part of the year we have completed the bridge to bond refinancing exercise we announced last year. Today, at the end of the first quarter anyway, our debt was around 3.5 billion euros. So with a buffer of around 800 million with respect to the total committed facilities of 4.3 billion. We have invested a lot in tenor, around 80% of our standing debt, 2.2 billion with the bonds and 0.7 billion with the European Investment Bank. So close to 3 billion has been financed with the tenor, with very long tenor. So we're talking about for the bond 5, 7, and 10 years, and for the European Investment Bank something more than 10 years. So 80% was financed with these very long maturities. On the right side of the slide, you can read that. We have invested in duration. The fixed rate portion is 60% of the total. I remember that the 2.2 billion euros of bonds have been raised and locked at fixed rate with the coupon, which is the average coupon is around 1.1%. The good news is that notwithstanding the solidity and the lower exposure to interest rate we bought from the market, the cost of this package is below 1%. For the future, for the plan at least, we will continue to maintain an adequate liquidity profile buying the facility that the rating agencies request. We are talking about something in the range of 600 million euros of unused, undrawn facilities. We will continue to diversify the funding sources. In particular, we will continue to put in competition the debt capital market and banks, and we will continue to raise money until we will have project for that from the European Investment Bank. I mean, with a very, very long maturities with adequate, at least cost. Again, the maturity is something on which we will be focused in the plan. We want to maintain we want to manage the refinancing risk at the same level we have today. And in terms of exposure to interest rates, we want to maintain a ratio of 2/3 fixed, 1/3 floating. Talking about the future, some numbers. 2017 and some indication for the midterm in order to permit our friends to make their own elaborations. Revenues, we expect for this year a total amount of revenues of around 1.1 billion euros. We expect to have an EBITDA of around 720, 740 million. So the marginality is something more than 60, we would say 66, 67%, which would permit us to have a return of our asset close to 7%, EBIT to RAB. For the midterm, I would suggest you to consider that there is a correlation, important correlation between revenues and RAB. Therefore, I would use the rate of the RAB growth also in order to project the trend of the revenues for the next plan. We do have opportunities to maintain attractive profitability. I mean, I would say that the operating efficiencies spaces that Paolo were described before, in the current perimeter, together with the further efficiencies we could exploit on the portfolio of activity of the group after the reshape of the tenders present for us the condition for maintaining at least the current profitability. Having a return on asset close to 7% give us a lot of possibility to beat, let me say, the return set by the regulator and our cost of capital. In terms of RAB, the RAB we expect at the end of this year is 5.8 billion. Which is supported by the important investment plan we have, Capex plan we have for this year, more than 500 million euros. With the growth rate that was described before by Paolo. In terms of leverage, we expect to close this year at 62%. It is easy for you to calculate which is our target in terms of net financial debt at the end of this year. I would leave you to Paolo for the final remarks and the dividend policy, much more important.
Okay. Okay, now we are going to the end of this presentation, so you will have quite a lot of time for your questions. But before arriving at the end, I would like to talk about the shareholder remunerations. First of all, let me recap a little bit regarding the presentation that we have made up to now. 3 billion euro is the organic investment. Another 2 billion euro is devoted to capture opportunity and to increase our market share. We have put in place action to achieve and to outperform the objective of 50% saving in respect to the 2016 baseline. These savings are coupled with a substantial innovation we will bring into our company. And then, Antonio was very clear, we have a solid balance sheet. It's a company that is generating and will generate strong cash flow with an efficient financial structure. All these elements represent a very solid platform to create value for our shareholder through dividends and growth of the company. So let's move to the final number. In London, we were discussing about what was low single digit. And then there has been discussion between 2, 3, 2.5, and so forth. Now we have been more clear. We are going to grow our dividend by 4% every year, starting from the result of 2017. So the baseline is the 20 cents that we paid a few days ago. So next year, we will have these 20 cents increased by 4%. We think that our results and our expected results and our solid balance sheet is, as we said before, a solid platform for us to be able to tell you that we are going to increase the dividends by 4% every year. And let me close with the same, with the same chart that we opened the presentation. I'm sure you will agree that Italgas is an attractive investment. And I think we have been able to show that since the first quarter of 2017, since the result that we present in 2016, even if the year 2016 has been a very transition year in which we emerged from SNAM, and therefore there has been many many situations that are not recurring. I think in the review of the business plan that we promised and we were able to show you today, we clearly identify the targets, we clearly identify the amount of investment, we clearly identify where we want to go. And I think you can appreciate all the details that we given to you in order to let you better understanding which is our plan. I remember very well when in London we told you, well, give us some more time because we want to get into more details in this company. We want to have a little bit more time in order to have a better picture of the company that was just emerging from SNAM. We want to present to you a very solid, robust, and challenging industrial plan. I think we have done that job. Now is the time that we will execute what we have promised to you. Thank you.
Okay, we can start the Q&A session. We start here on the floor, and then we can move also on the conference call. Monica?
Hello, good afternoon. It's Monica Girardi from Barclays. I have a few questions. The first one is a general question, and I beg your pardon if I'm asking that, but it's a recurring question that is addressed to us as well. I was wondering if you can just share with us your thoughts around any political risks that might come together with the early election, if this might impact the calendar of the concession tenders at all. The second question is on the M&A opportunities that you were talking about. I have two questions here. The first one is, in case of a lack of opportunities from concession tenders, would you consider to go into, say, closed sectors? You were talking about water before. Is water an option for you eventually? The second question linked with M&A is on the price that you are willing to pay if you go for an inorganic acquisition. Of course, I'm not asking you to define what is going to be your reserve price, that's for sure. But just if you can help us in understanding if you're willing to pay a premium eventually to RAB, and how this premium might be justified, or what we can see associated with assets that might justify that premium. The last question is on the dividend. You decided to give to us an additional year of visibility on the dividend, but you cut your dividend policy before the end of your strategic plan. I presume this is linked with the regulatory framework, but just asking you if this is the case. And if this is the case, what would be the extreme scenario that you might anticipate on a change from a regulatory perspective that might put your dividend policy at risk?
Let me start from the second question, because the second question is somehow linked to the first one. I'm talking about the M&A opportunities. There are many M&A opportunities, first of all, so there is no, when you say maybe there is a lack of opportunity, on the contrary, there are many. The reason is very simple, is the timeline of the tender. Imagine a small operator that has like 30,000 redelivery points in one atom. They will not be able to participate to the tender process because they don't have the requirement. So they are waiting for the tenders to happen because they know that they are going to leave the business, they are going to cash in the value of their assets. But for a small entrepreneur, the problem of the time is also important because they don't know when it's going to happen. So we have our counterpart that he knows that he's going to sell, but he does not know when. And that is not a nice situation for him. On our side, we wanted to buy, but we don't know when it's going to happen. So it's quite a nice match between a small distributor that wants to sell and a leading company like us that wants to buy. So the opportunities are there because there is such a match. About price, well, we will evaluate case by case. But what is important is not the premium over RAB, is the RAB versus VIR. In a sense that if the small distributor knows that he will sell, he's going to get the VIR. So if there is a big difference between RAB and VIR, then maybe there is some discussion. If the two numbers are very close, let me say, the maximum he can get, if he wants to wait the number of years needed to have the tender completed, is the VIR. That would be the maximum. So I don't, the issue of the price, I don't see it as a big issue because of these two elements. Let's go back to the political risk. Normally it's the first or the second question that happens every time that we meet somebody. And also in the past, it was same question. The answer is always the same. We don't see such influence. Unfortunately, the tenders are not moving at the speed we would like to see, but it is not because of political change or any instability. That is because tender is a complex object. It's not easy, maybe for small municipality to put together a tender, to collect all the data from all the different operators, to make them homogeneous, to issue a tender, to describe in detail the 100 points that they have to give. So to me, the problem of the timeline of the tender is mainly because tender is a complex object. It's not easy to put together. If there is a further delay, again, we have already started the process to close the gap. So 200,000 delivery point is what we feel being the size is the right size to fill the gap between now and the tenders that will probably start in a significant number. If the tenders will further delay, that means that the 200,000 delivery point will become, I don't know, 400,000. So I think the opportunities are in the market. We need just to try to get them as soon as possible, to show to you that the opportunities are there. Finally, on dividends, I think the 3 years is linked, like you said, to the regulatory period. Our view is that for the following period, 4% is probably going to be, let me say, a good reference, let me say, a floor for the coming years. But we don't want to give or to commit ourselves for such a longer period, not considering the fact that between 2018, 19, and 20 there will be at the end of 19 there will be the end of the fourth regulatory period. I don't know if maybe Antonio can add something.
No. No, one point maybe in the M&A activities and the premium. Consider also that one of the rationale could be to have a better position in certain areas, in certain items. Therefore, in case of premium, you have also to consider how this premium, plurale, will be divided, will be diluted, considering the entire atom. If you pay a premium for being much more competitive, it is clear the premium will be diluted in considering the investment of the entire atom.
Okay.
Hi, Enrico Bartoli from MyFirst. A few questions also on my side. First of all, you provided a lot of details on the cost-cutting measures that you're planning over the plan. I was wondering what risk did you see in the targets you provided, if any? or and if you consider the actions feasible, or you can see some additional room within the company in order to continue the trend that you highlighted. Then I have a question from Mr. Pacioretti. In the press release, there was when mentioned the possibility to further optimization of the cost of debt or the financial structure. If you can provide us some additional comments on that. And then a question regarding the Capex plan related to the digital meters. If I'm right, so far you have agreed with the authority the replacement of 50% of the PDRs. If you, in terms of regulation or discussions with the authority, what is the outlook for the balance that you expect to be replaced by 2020?
Okay, for the cost, I mean, the plan is fully feasible. We don't see significant risk in achieving the number. I would probably say that we can eventually do it better. Why I'm saying that? Because we spent the beginning of 2017 working on one by one in details. So the reliability of the data that we provided to you, the example that we brought to you, is absolutely solid. I switched to the third, so then I will let Antonio speak about the financing. On the meters, let me just make it more clear. By 2018, we will have replaced all the meters, let me say the bigger meters, let me say, and 50% of the residential one. We are discussing with the, I mean, we told the authority by 2020 we will replace them all. I mean, it's in our plan, it has been declared. We are discussing with the authority generally, but I think they are fine with them because they have not set any target beyond 2018.
In relation to the other question, I mean, the possible instrument for managing additional financial efficiencies, two elements. The first one, take into account 500 million euros of financial debt we have with the banking communities. We do have here today some friends from the banks, but it is clear that renegotiating part of these facilities at maturity will be one of the main elements of efficiencies. The other one is, in terms of banking facilities, the capacity of the company, and we have already demonstrated that we are capable to do it, not to use the committed lines, so paying the spread, contractual spread, but just using the committed lines for the umbrella, so paying 1/3 of the spread and going to the market, the financial market, providing a very important, very huge liquidity on debt. I would say that the current floating rate is, at the beginning of this exercise, we used to say that is something around 50 basis points of spread plus the Euribor, but it's clear that all in all, the cost of these facilities are much closer to zero than to 50 basis points. The other point is the exercise we could do in terms of having longer duration, so to protect the outperformance of our cost, the outperformance of our balance sheet. The current conditions still give us the possibility to increase the duration at the same cost we had in the present debt structure. Ci siamo dimenticati di Monica, che aveva chiesto in caso di mancanza di crescita se pensiamo ad altri business.
Okay. Yes. Before I forgot to answer to you about the question: if there is no growth, are you thinking about other business like water distribution? I mean, the fact that we created the company is not because we are looking at other business. The fact is that we created a small company, or we are going to create. We have not created yet. We're going to create a small company just because we want to optimize also the managing of that business that is slightly different from the gas distribution. But no, we are completely focused on consolidating our sector.
Hi, it's Javier Suarez at Mediobanca. 3 questions on my side too. The first one is on cost cutting on page number 24. I think that the overall OPEX by 2018 should be something like 350 million euros. Can you be more explicit on the number by 2023 on the OPEX X new tenders? And also could be interested on your business plan, which would be that OPEX including the new tenders. And the second question I think is related to this one is on the profitability. In the business plan presentation of last year, you were mentioning an EBITDA margin of 65%, and now you are higher or are indicating a higher number for 2017. Where are you landing in terms of EBITDA margin by the end of the business plan? Which is a level do you think is reasonable to assume in terms of profitability by 2023? And then the third question is on the tender, and it's coming back to the question of my colleagues, is we have all noticed a significant delay on the tendering process. Also you in page number 26 are accepting that delay and delaying roughly by a year the new tenders. Why tenders should happen in 2017? What has changed on the political environment, on the authorization process that make us or investors more comfortable that a number of tenders are going to happen in 2017? Or what could be preventing that new delays could not happen again and again? And a correlated question, can you share with us the name and second names of the tender you are expected to be completed by 2017?
Okay, let's start from the
Cost cutting.
cost cutting. As we said, after 2019, 18, we are going to be better in terms of cost reduction than the X factor. So you can make your maths. So we want to leave you some work to do. We don't want to make your life too easy. Regarding the new concession that we may win, we have embedded in our business plan the fact that the new concession will be less efficient than our standard. But, and we have done this exercise especially on the personnel point of view. But by 2023, we will be able to bring also the new concession, the one that will acquire through tender, at our same level. Then on the EBITDA, it's right. We at the Capital Market Day, we gave you a level of 65%. Let me say that in the last 3-4 years of the plan, we will be around 70%. And finally, you were mentioning the tender, which are the names and why. Why? I mean, I was saying before, putting together a tender is a complex work. And sometimes the municipality do not have the technical expertise or the technical competence to put everything together. That is the major reason for delay. Which are the names of the tenders in which we are going to participate? Torino 2, I told you. Belluno is the other one that was supposed to be at the end of June, but then it was going probably to delay by a few months, so it will happen. And then other names that may happen in 17 is Massa Carrara, Venice, Monza. So we think that out of these 5 that I told you, probably 3 will happen. That is the numbers that we put. So which of the 5, we don't know. But we think that 3 out of 5 could be a good result. E c'era forse qualcuno che l'aveva chiesto prima, scusi, Gamberini, solo perché.
Hi, I'm Oliver Salverson from Jefferies. Just again on the tender process, given that you said sort of how complicated it is and the municipalities are having a lot of issues with it, why are you confident that the delay really is only 1 year? So when you talk about the 30 to 40 concessions which you now expect to happen in 2020 versus 2019, what is that based on? Is that based on any changes that the regulator may put in place? And then secondly, on M&A, your target net debt to RAB of below 65%, does that include the potential gas natural acquisition?
Okay, to answer to the first one, let me use this paradox. Why we're confident that will happen 1 year later, I mean with 1 year of delay, because when we were all of us at the university and you miss an exam the second time, you normally pass the exam. So in other terms, I mean municipalities are learning that it's difficult to put together a tender process, but they are learning. They are learning thanks to us, in part, and thanks to the authority, mainly to the authority for the energy and gas that is helping them through indication what is wrong, what they have to fix, how to make the tender. So the learning process is going on, and that's the reason why we think that 1 year delay should be probably fine, hopefully. But the idea is that we don't see any change, or we have not embedded in our plan any change in the regulatory framework. But we think that this year, in which there has been several interactions between the municipality and the authority for the energy and gas, it will help the municipality to put together tender processes that are quite solid.
The PIC does not consider gas energy.
Gas natural.
Cosa ho detto? Gas natural, sorry. Anyway, I just want to make a further comment. We need to evaluate the deal when the deal will be launched. But I would not be surprised if in the portfolio of the target, around 1/3 of the concession are concessions which we already consider in our growth through the tenders. 1/3 are concessions which are not interested in, so could be considered as a concession to be lost during the tenders, and the other 1/3 could be interesting. So in terms of additional capital deployment or additional peak with respect to the one we have discussed before, the impact is not the entire portfolio, but would be 1/3 of that.
Good afternoon, Stefano Gamberini, Equita SIM. 3 quick questions. First of all, regarding the tender process, do you expect a tough competition when the tenders will arrive, or do you think that at the end of the day there are few operators that will tender and the consolidation will be easy? The second, regarding the appeals against the regulation and against the tenders, could you update us regarding the situation of the different appeals that already occurred in the past, and if you expect that there is a further appeal after the tenders, like in case of Milan, we will see what could happen. Finally, regarding the slide number 35, you showed a line of the debt of RAB, in my view, lower compared to the presentation of the Capital Market Day, where we were around 65%. Now we are closer to 60% in terms of debt to RAB. Could you help us to understand what is the main difference compared to what you projected a few months ago and the new projection, where the debt on RAB should be around 60% in 2023 with higher Capex? Thanks.
On the first question, it is difficult to say. Let me make an example. We expect maybe lower competition in Torino 2, because we are the incumbent. We expect high competition in Belluno, for example, just to make you 2 examples, where we have 18% of the market share. So the competition will mainly depend which is the situation of the atom. How many operators, if you remember the 4 criteria in which we cluster the different atoms, there were how many operators? size of the operators, size of their market share in that atom, which kind of operator there are. There are local municipality or national player. So the competition will heavily depend how the atom is today. So we cannot. We expect that there will be competition everywhere, and there will be some in which the competition will be high, some other in the competition will be low. For the appeals, I think a good example is Milano, you mentioned. I read it on newspaper, like probably you read, that Italgas has just, how do you say? They just dropped the appeal. On the other appeal, I think we don't have any news, any new appeal that is going on. I think the situation is quite stable from that point of view. The last sentence that we know that is about, for example, Venice, the authority for the energy and gas was fully right, was completely right. So to me, some of the appeal that happened in the past clarified the situation about how the tender should be done. So I don't see any other coming, at least not in our understanding.
For the other question, the evolution of our leverage with respect to the one we have shown in the debt capital market in the capital market day of November, some elements. The first one is the starting point. The starting point was around 63%. Starting point end 2017. We have closed the year 16. We have closed the year 16 with a leverage of 61%. The other point is the level of the operating cash flow, which we estimate a bit higher, both for a better phasing of the investment. In this plan, we have anticipated, we have changed in the first 3-4 years the mix of investment, increasing the proportion of the substitution of the meters, giving us more cash flow. And the other element is some estimation we made, a more accurate estimation we made on the evolution of the working capital. In this business plan, all in all, we consider the working capital neutral in the period. As far as the denominator, let me say, the RAB has been calculated taking into account the current regulatory framework. The result is the one you can see.
Maybe we would like to respond to some of the questions that we received from the web.
From the web, we have a question from Stefano Bezzato, Credit Suisse. He's asking about, given the 50% reduction that we project by 2018, and at that year, what could be the outperformance that we estimate compared to the allowed OPEX that are accounted by the regulatory framework?
I think the answer is that we have estimated a 15% reduction in respect to the baseline of 16. Generally speaking, if you want to make a general statement, our target for cost reduction is that we want to outperform the objective set by the authority. So in that case, the difference is very big, but because we started from a very large number. You remember we promised in the Capital Market Day that we were able to offset by 2017 all the emerging costs that non-recurring, and to absorb them in our cost. I think we outperformed that. So we were able not only to absorb the emerging costs, but even do it better than that. I think the second question...
And again from Stefano is considering the same slide, the progress that we expect in efficiency beyond 2018, if we do not fear about a potential further crunch of the X factor by in the next regulatory review by the regulator?
I mean, this question is a little bit tricky, if you want, because we are not the only player into the market. Normally, the authorities set the objective in terms of cost reduction based on the situation of all the operators. So the fact that we will outperform their target does not mean that the authority will, as an automatic way, will increase the targets. Because there are other operators, they may not be able to do what we are doing.
Maybe before coming back to the floor, let's move just for a few minutes to the conference call, just to see if we have a question from there.
We have our first question from the phone line from James Brand from Deutsche Bank.
Afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm going to come back again to this slide 24 and the kind of guidance on the costs, and just ask again if there's any more clarity in terms of what you're looking at delivering in terms of absolute reduction in the cost from 2018 and onwards. If you could just give us a flavour, because your ability to do much better than originally kind of outlined on the cost has been a defining element of the share price performance this year, and a very good one. So any help you could give us in terms of understanding what more we could expect would be appreciated. Thanks.
Let's go back to the chart.
Cos'era,
So at least,
24.
numero
24.
It's a little bit. Okay. Let's go back to the cost, to the chart. The gray one are concession fee. More or less, we see that those concession fee, without the tender, will remain stable over the period. So there is no cost reduction. On the personnel, that is the blue one on the top, we told you, increase of cost of personnel up to 2018, and then stable. Just put a straight line. So whatever you determine in 18 being the cost of the personnel, just put it until 2023, more or less, of course. We are working on the external cost. So if you make the maths, you can calculate how much is going to be the external cost. Concessions are fixed. Personnel more or less remain stable. So all the savings are coming from the external cost. And I mean, the chart shows, I mean, those are real numbers. The chart shows very clear where we are going to cut the cost. So from 2018 on, you can probably, if you want to pick a number, let's just say every year the cost will be reduced by 2%. That is the way that we are going to outperform the target set by the authority. It can be 1.8, 1.9, 1.6, will be in that range. So unless you want the numbers, but then I don't want to do your job. Okay.
All right, I'll get the ruler out, but that's very helpful, thank you.
Other questions?
Other question from the conference?
From the conference?
Then we close the conference.
Our next question comes from the line of Jose Ruiz from Macquarie.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just one question. It's for Mr. Pacchioretti. If you acquire Gas Natural's assets, would you be able to get a cost of funding below the average cost of Italgas today? Thank you.
I would say that it depends on the structure of financing we would think about. The condition of the market is not so different from the condition of the market where we raised the 2.2 billion euros of bonds. Therefore, I would say that if we think about the same structure, the cost would be aligned.
Okay. Let's come back to the floor.
Let's come back to the floor. We have other questions on the floor.
Bartek Kubicki, SocGen. 3 very quick questions. First, on M&A, do you see a competition in terms of buyers of other concessions in M&A process, like from the big players or somebody coming from outside? Second is, do you think that when you recycle the concessions you have at the moment and you will keep them, will your concession fee level actually increase or decrease or stay flat when the concession, after the tenders happen and they are finished? And third, beyond 2023, when the market is consolidated and 200 players are out of the market, do you think the regulator might be willing to change the regulations, especially in terms of WACC, and decrease the parameters in terms of decreasing the WACC, because there's less players, because there's stronger players on the market? Do you think this is the risk? Have you made any calculations? What could be the level already? Thank you.
Okay, on the M&A competition, well, 226 operators. Okay, let's take out the major 30 operators. There's still remaining 200. Yeah, we may have some competition, but there are, we are targeting the small operator. So we may, as of today, we have not found any on that, but you never know. The numbers that may be targeted is quite significantly high. The numbers is high. So if somebody else would like to go around and try to buy some concession, I think we have plenty of room. The second one on the concession, yes, the tenders will increase the concession. I think we have said that several times in the past. If you want, I think the increase of the concession we have always thought to be, once the tender will be completed, by 25 and 30 million euro per year in addition. And then you have also to consider the impact of the white certificate. So in respect of today, just to make a more clear answer, we expect that the level of concession will increase by 2 factors. The first one is because the level of concession in respect to our existing situation will increase by few points, and that will determine between 25 and 30 million more at the end of the tender process. And then there will be another increase due to the fact that of the white certificate. That's the reason why we are looking with a lot of interest into the energy efficiency sector, because we want to capture some of the value that we are obliged by the tender to release to the market.
I would say today we have a level of concession fees which is around 5.5% on the total revenues. We expect to increase this ratio of an additional 2%, so around 7.5%. This is the total amount for both concession fees and cost for white certificate.
Regarding the WACC and its evolution, we have said at the beginning of the presentation that we expect that the WACC remains stable in the plan horizon. We have made some sensitivity, and considering the situation as it is today, and considering the fact that there's going to be, if the spread versus the Bund is going to remain as it is now, there will be an increase of WACC, but then there will be some reduction due to the fact that the tax level has gone down. We have made the sensitivity, mixing all the different factors. At the end of the day, the WACC is going to remain stable.
At least.
Your question was more focused on the reduced number of operators. Well, we feel that the level of investment required, especially in the small concession, is consistent. As of today, the small operator does not invest a lot. I mean, there is a clear, and if the Authority for the Energy and Gas wants to improve the investment, they can make some small adjustment to the WACC. Otherwise, people will not invest. You will not have such investment. So overall, considering the different aspects, I mean the mathematical elements inside the WACC formula, and also considering the overall environment, we see that in our 2017-2023 period, the WACC will remain stable. Other questions? Uno, due.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Olivier Van Doosselaar from Exane. Thank you for your presentation. I just had three questions. One, just to be sure on the timing of the tenders and actually when you have them actually contributing to your numbers. I remember that I think in November you explained that a tender can be launched, but then there will be some time actually before it gets closed. And so I just wanted to be sure if you say that by 2021 you expect that all of them will have been launched, that means that that's also the year by which you expect to have closed them and incorporate them into your app, or would that be done a little bit later? Second question is, again, on a little bit on regulatory risk. I think that there's a likely change that would happen soon in the board of the regulator, just to the maturity of mandates. I wonder if you would consider change in the board of the regulator as a possible risk. And then third one is just to know what inflation parameter you have in your business plan.
Okay. Well, you put many risks. You are you feel many things at risk. Let me start with the easiest one. How many times we changed the board of the Authority for the Energy and Gas since we started? Many times. What happened? Stable regulation. Also because remember that the board of the authority, I mean the people have to be appointed with the 2/3 of the commission, of the relevant commission of the parliament. So it means that the people that will be appointed based on a very vast majority. So I don't see any risk about that. I mean 20 years of history is probably enough to keep you let me say, more confident about the new board of the Authority for the Energy and Gas. For the timing, that is the timing. You are right. That is the year of publication. Let me say also another element that is not included into that chart, that these represent the overall, the 177 items. But then our items are not all 177. So, for example, we don't have any items published in the year 2021 in which we will be interested. In any event, by 2022, our tenders, so the tenders in which we feel we are going to win, will be fully awarded. So by that time, the RAB will reach its peak. The inflation, the average inflation that we use as a deflator for the calculation of the RAB is 1.2%.
Elchin Mahmoud of Bloomberg Intelligence. I only have one question. It's on CNG. You mentioned that you plan to roll out your network. Yep. Isn't it what Snam is doing as well? And will you be competing with them or not? And the related question is any part of that a regulated part, or is it fully unregulated activity? Thank you.
Well, it's a private CNG network, so it's not competing with Snam. We would not compete with them. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's in order not to rely on the refuel stations that are public. We're going to build, they are a small refuel station in which you may take 1 or 2 hours to completely refuel the cars. So they are non-regulated, you are correct, so we'll not go into the RAB, but we made the case from an economic viewpoint, and the return is very, very attractive because we are going to spend less for the fuel, less for the maintenance, and so the amount that we are going to invest, that is a small amount, to build this private CNG network refuel station will be repaid in a very short period of time.
Hi, it's Anna Maria Scaglia from Morgan Stanley. I've got two very quick questions. The first one is regarding the range of EBITDA for 2017. What's the reason of the 20 million delta in the range? Can you explain what will bring you at the top or the bottom? And the second question is on the opportunistic M&A, the new redelivery point. That doesn't seem to me that opportunistic, right? It seems to me that is a decision taken that you're going to do the small M&A. And I was wondering whether this is in the target in terms of the net debt to RAB that you have disclosed, and what kind of the way you're thinking about resources. And connected to that, which was a question that was raised at Q1 result, what's the risk that an antitrust regulator will see this ahead of tenders consolidation as a risk? Mm-hmm. How you are tackling that? How are you thinking about that? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I will let Antonio respond to the first question, but so I can move to your question about the M&A. I don't know if it's here or not. I don't remember. No, it was before. In any event, I mean, when we say it's opportunistic, is because we will look for. So, I mean, you are right. It's a decision taken. So maybe we use the wrong English word, but the idea is that because of the delay of the tender, we want to do something, because we want to grow and we want to consolidate the sector, and therefore we started looking for opportunistic situation, and maybe that was the correct use, in order to buy small operators. From an antitrust viewpoint, we are talking about small operators. I mean, they are not larger than 30,000 redelivery points. So it's an amount that, I mean, those operators will not be part of the tender, will not compete into the tender. So they, from a competition point of view, they are not part of the competition. So from that point of view, we are quite confident that the antitrust is not going to be an issue, because it's not a competitor into the tender. And I think on the first one, why 20 million difference? Because my response that I will let Antonio, you need to do some job, come on. Please.
Apart from the joke, you know that around close to 1 billion euros of our revenues are related to the pure distribution activities, so Vittoriamento. We have 50, 60 million which are revenues and therefore margins that are due to the other regulated activities, so the maintenance, when we are called for closing open new redelivery points, and so other ancillary activities. This is something that is not in our hands. The volumes in particular are not in our hands, so we don't have the same visibility of result as for the rest of the business.
And then, I mean, we normally don't give an exact numbers. So if you want, you can reduce to 15 million the delta, if you prefer.
Aveva chiesto debito su RAB con...
Sì. Regarding the M&A, what we show to you, being the net debt over RAB, is exactly with the M&A activity already included. So we build the 200, I mean, the fact that we made the decision is, in fact, we build the 200,000 delivery point inside our business plan, the relevant amount to acquire them in the period end of 17, 18, beginning of 19, so in that time frame period, and the net debt over RAB reflects that amount.
Okay, just one more question, then we can close the presentation. which I think has been 2 hours presentation.
It's Javier again. So, sorry for coming back on this. It's just on the tendering process versus M&A. Would you agree with the criticism that M&A is a second best versus the tendering process, that you are entering into this M&A discussion because the tendering process is suffering delays? Is that a fair criticism or not? Or putting the question in a slightly different terms, if you are paying a price that is deviated from the bid, then the process is suboptimal versus the tendering process. Is that way of thinking correct or wrong in your view? And then the final question is on the, you mentioned the possibility of doing some additional profitability, making an investment that could allow you to benefit from the white certificate regulation. Can you quantify and help us to understand the Capex that you need to make and the profitability of that investment? Thank you.
Okay. The first one, I would respond to you is suboptimal because you normally look at the concessions that are very small. So maybe you have to deal with an operator that has 15,000 delivery points. And the way that we deal as a big company is the same the way that we deal with gas natural. So from one side, you can acquire in one shot 500,000 delivery points. From the other side, you put, I'm not saying a similar effort, but a significant effort also to acquire 50,000 delivery points. So to me, it's suboptimal for that reason. I mean, that we put an effort also for a small concession. What you mentioned is right. I mean, we are doing that because of the delay of the tenders. I mean, again, the idea of RAB and VIR, as I said, it depends, and the targets that we set is also linked to that element. If RAB and VIR is very close to each other, then there is no issue. Regarding the second question, so the energy efficiency, our target is to have over the planned period the possibility to generate around 100,000 white certificates. So in terms of hedging, our short position is about 110, 1 out of 8, depending of the year. The Capex required is very limited. We are talking about between 70 to 80 million euro. So it's not a large amount of Capex. All the numbers are included in the numbers that we show to you, so it's already included. If there is no more question, I mean, we can finish. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the 2 hours that you have dedicated to us. Thank you.